I want to start off with a quick story, and then I'm going to kind of just get out of their way because I think that they have a lot to share with you guys. I was working with an athlete, and I asked her, what are your goals for the upcoming year? And here's what she told me, okay? I want to win a conference tournament, I want to win a national championship, and I want to beat my scoring record. I then asked her this question: why is that important? Here's what she said: to feel success. Why is that important? Why is that important? Why is that important? And that's exactly where we needed to go. That in her mind, she thought that reaching a level of achievement will make her happy, will complete her. I said, let me ask you a question. What if I met you, 13 years old, you just started your sport, and I told you on that day, in 6 short years, when you're 19 years old, this would be your resume? How would that make you feel? She said, I'd be the happiest girl alive. That's the exact situation you're in. Are you the happiest girl alive? No, the pressure overrides any joy I feel for the game. Now, why it's so special to have these guys up here to kind of talk about this story is they've all achieved at the highest level, and they've been on the other side of success, and they can talk to you a little bit more about what that feels like. So, Billy, I'm just going to toss it to you. For those of you guys that don't know, Billy Donovan, great coach at the University of Florida, has since moved on to Oklahoma City Thunder. Congratulations, man. Thank you. All right. And so when you hear that story, like, what's going on in your mind?
Well, I think, one of the things that happens to all of us is, I think society deems what success looks like. And I do think there's a large spiritual component to all of this, because I think inside all of us there's always something that's missing, and we're looking to fill that hole or fill that gap. And a lot of times we think by achievement or by success, that hole or gap is going to be filled, and we're going to feel better about ourselves, or people are going to view us differently, or we're going to get to a level where we're just going to feel like, we're complete as a person. And I think what ends up happening is the more success you have and the more you become driven to do that, and it's for the wrong reasons, it's for the reasons to make yourself feel better, it becomes very, very fleeting, and it gets to a place and a point in your life where you almost can become more unhappy because you have this illusion going through. Because when you're chasing something, a championship or whatever it may be, as you're chasing something, a lot of times it doesn't happen right away. And when you've invested all these years into something, and then you achieve something at the very highest level, and you look back on all those years, you have to say that in a lot of ways, I was viewing this all the wrong way. And what I thought it was going to bring to me, the value it was going to bring to me as a person, it never, ever fills that void. And it actually leaves you, I think, a lot of times thinking more about what your purpose is in life, in coaching. And I think if you talk to anybody that's been a part of high-level success, there's almost a depression that can come immediately following it. And I'm sure all of us, these guys up here, can speak to it as well. And what that depression is, or being down, is like, I thought I was going to feel different, and you really don't. And so when I hear people or coaches and their view of what success is going to do for their life, I'm like, they're going down the wrong road. I'm just happy in a lot of ways that I was able to have some of those things happen to me early in my life so I could figure out some better ways to approach coaching and some better ways to view success.
And I'm actually going to throw it over to Tim, because Tim, you won your first one last year. Okay, can you kind of just talk and share your experience? It was a dark time for you.
Yeah, first of all, I just can't believe I'm sitting up here with these great coaches. This is a tremendous experience for me personally. But yeah, I actually leaned on Coach Donovan in his office for a long period of time just with that. I felt the void of the empty feeling of, now what? And I think I enjoyed the national championship about 12 to 13 hours last season. And immediately jump back up to recruiting and try to be back to where you need to be. I got to recruit. I got to go out and get the best players. We got to continue this, and it did. It left a huge void because I thought I achieved everything and there was going to be, you know, I don't know, streamers and parades and all the other things that you think success is going to bring, and it didn't bring it. You know, my kids really loved the championship, but they didn't really care about the national championship the next day. It was over, and there's just a lot of things that it really leaves a void in your life because you think you work so hard to get to something that's going to kind of erase or just make you have a different feeling or have this feeling in particular, and it wasn't there.
And to that point, Anson, I know you're going to speak more about this in your speech a little bit later, but can you talk about how you use the roses? Because it's such a great visual of what really happens.
Yeah, I'm not one of these guys that believes in championship rings or trophies or anything. The sort of a reward we give our kids for championships is actually flowers. We have certain flowers for ACC regular season championships, certain flowers for ACC tournament championships, and we actually use red roses for national championships. And the thing that's really cool about a flower as sort of symbolic of the championship is it dies. It dies relatively quickly, and for me that's the perfect symbol of what a championship's all about. I was born and raised overseas. I was born in Bombay, India at the age of 3. My family moved to Calcutta. From Calcutta, we moved to Nairobi, Kenya. From there, I went to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. My dad was an oil businessman. Every 3 years, we were transferred. From there to Singapore, Malaysia, Brussels, Belgium. I was sent to a Swiss boarding school. I'll tell you what's interesting, and I know a lot of you in the room that have done a lot of travel will understand this. As an American raised overseas, you end up passionately defending American foreign policy. There's a love-hate relationship the world has with the United States. And one of the really cool things I had a chance to do was to coach the U.S. women's national team. And I'll tell you, coaching the U.S. women's national team was visceral for me because I wanted to get after every single country in the world. This was their game. I wanted to get after them for every slight I had experienced in every country I'd ever lived in. So for me, I mean, winning these games was incredibly serious. And so we're in the first Women's World Championship. We're in Guangzhou, China. This is 1991. The FIFA protocol officer is in our locker room before the World Championship game, and she's explaining to us that, you know, these are political environments, and so if your team wins, please be gracious about it. You know, stay on the sideline and, you know, be very calm, shake the opponent's hands. I'm thinking, I don't think this protocol officer understands anything about the American personality. And sure enough, we won the World Championship, and the entire bench is out there. There's a dog pile on the field. And here's what's really interesting. It's consistent with what you're going to hear all day, is all that happened to me right after we won is I sat down. I was just relieved that on my watch, we didn't lose. And so here's this. I've spent my life defending American foreign policy. I spent my coaching profession with the U.S. women's national team with a visceral attitude about going after everyone. And then we finally achieved the ultimate in our sport for a national team. All I felt was relief.
And Roland, now you won. All these guys have won back-to-backs. And Roland, it was 11 and 12.
Right.
Can you kind of just take us through that and then 13?
Well, 11 and 12, we had basically the same team. And after winning them back-to-back, the following year, we lost one of our best players. And I think at that point, the expectation level for me and how I perceived the rest of the tennis world was that Florida really did not have a chance to three-peat. And once the year started, I was telling myself, look, I'm playing with house money, right? Nobody's expecting anything. We can lose in round 16. Hey, we won back-to-back. So here we are in the third year, and lo and behold, we're actually playing really well. We win the SEC, we somehow win the SEC tournament, and we're entering in the NCAA tournament as the #2 seed. And so my buddy, in the beginning of the year, had called me, and he'd asked me, hey, what do you think the chances are for you to three-peat? And in August, I told him, oh man, there's no way, 5%. The day before we leave to go out to the Sweet 16, he calls me again and say, hey, what do you think now? And I remember thinking, I remember like yesterday, I remember thinking, man, it's 50%. And he's like, wow. And he'd bought a bottle of scotch for me. I like scotch the first year. It was a Macallan 18. I know, that's $100. We won it back-to-back. He bought a Macallan 21. That's $800. So all he was worried about is if we three-peat, what kind of bottle is he buying me now? And so we fly out there, and we really try, as coaches, when we go out, we really try to take an unemotional approach when we go out there. We try to be real lucid and take emotion out of it for our athletes. And I just remember going out there being absolutely miserable. I got completely caught up in winning and somehow lost communication with my players. My wife and my kids, they come to the Sweet 16 every year, and they came out, and my wife didn't want to be around me. I was short. I was really miserable out there, and we lost in the Final Four in a really close one. And I remember coming back to Gainesville, I was really hurting. I was really stressed about it, not from a standpoint of losing, but I was confused and really worried that somehow, you know, winning the back-to-back had now pushed the bar up so high that it almost had become unattainable to be happy. And the only way that I could personally be happy was to continue to win. And I think the real trade craft for us is to be able to judge what we do in how closely we can fulfill the potential of our team. And I got to give Brett a lot of credit, because I met him a couple of months after I came back to Gainesville, and he's done a lot for me personally as well as for our teams in how to sort of decipher this whole thing about winning and winning championships and what this whole thing should really be about.
And Billy, you told me an interesting line the other day about just this illusion that you can will yourself to a championship. Can you kind of talk about that?
Well, I think what happens sometimes is, you know, again, so much of this stuff I think is driven in a way where things are constantly put out there through different avenues. And, you know, you hear these words like you can will yourself to win, or somebody wills the ball in the basket. Well, if you could will the ball in the basket and you could will yourself to win, then you would never lose. So there's this idea out there sometimes, I think even for players or coaches, that I'm going to will my team, or I'm going to will this to happen or will that to happen, because there's times how often you hear on TV, he's just willing his team to win, you know, and he's willing the ball in the basket, or I just refuse to be beat today. Well, does that mean you just sometimes want to win and sometimes don't want to win? And I think when we hear sometimes this messaging, you know, if there's a will, there's a way. Everybody's here because you're driven, you're motivated. There is an internal drive, and I think there's an internal drive up here. But sometimes we get into this place where we actually feel poorly about ourselves, where we have this drive or will to be successful, and when we fall short, there's something wrong with me. Because he or she or that coach, they were able to will their team to win. Why can't I? And I think the worst thing that we can do is when you start getting into comparisons of what somebody else, and I think that, you know, I've thought a lot about the whole idea of willing something to happen. If we were really able to do that, we would never experience failure. And so Brett and I have had conversations about that whole will part. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a great drive and a great passion. And if you want to achieve something, if it doesn't happen, it is not a reflection on who you are as a person. And I think that's where the dangerous slope comes, where immediately the next response after failure is, there's something wrong with me. Why are they doing it, or why is this team doing it? Why are we not doing it? And I think that's where you really get into a slippery slope, where your identity and who you are as a person is wrapped up into the result of being successful and winning.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because this collaboration at Florida, it almost gives you an opportunity to sort of repurpose all of these negative things that you went through, so you can help guide people that are experiencing it for the first time. And I got to tell you that we were talking about this last night, Roland and Billy. This is crap. Like, Tim, they're going to hear how you've evolved, because this last year was remarkable. And so, but I would like for you to show them the other side of the coin. And I remember one time we were talking, and Billy's like, "Hey, man, you all right?" And it had been, and kind of just share with them what you were going through, and maybe that trip that you and Roland took and how that helped you.
Yeah, we played for the national championship last year in 2014, and just got on absolute fire and won. And I went into a bad state. You know, fortunately for me, my athletic director said, "Hey, you're not recruiting. We're going to keep you on campus." Why? Because we've had, you know, Coach Donovan win back-to-back championships. Urban Meyer, who's a very close friend of mine, I talked to a lot. You know, had some serious issues with championship, not only championships but the failure of. So he put me on kind of house lockdown. I didn't get to go off campus, and I was in a bad state. Felt like my heart was racing. I felt like I was. We win a championship and you think you're going to make a lot of money. Well, I spent my money in the hospital on heart workups and brain workups. I don't have an aneurysm. I didn't have a heart problem. And I'm not a nervous person. And I just was like, this is something, I'm going to die. It felt terrible. And they're all laughing because I think everybody kind of has gotten to that point. And finally got to the point where I came down from that feeling of just an anxiety of, I've got to do it again. I'm going to do it again. What do we have to do it again? And, you know, and Roland texted me one day and said, "Hey, you got to get away from here. Let's go fishing." And so we did. I was so wrapped up in all of what it takes to win. And my offices aren't at my field. Everything we do is based upon, you know, we get time, go. And I didn't feel like I had enough time to spend with my athletes, even though I spent, you know, hours a day with my best players and we work on their skills. It was a feeling of unfulfillment, and I won a championship, but it didn't feel like the same as I thought it was going to be. I was fortunate enough to win it as a player. I thought it was a party. I thought it was going to be a celebration, and it completely turned out to be not that. And so I seriously looked in the mirror. You know, thankfully Roland took me out on his boat. We went fishing for a couple days. Coach Donovan allowed me to be in his office for a 15-minute meeting that was 3 hours and a half, and I was blown away with the gratitude. And the same thing with a lot of other people, a lot of coaches that I've leaned on. And then Brett comes into my life through Becky at the nick of time, because I was contemplating, you know what, how long do I want to do this thing like this? Because, you know, at the end of the day, if I don't win, I'm a loser. If you're number one, you're supposed to win, so you're going to win. Or if you don't, the media is going to criticize why you're not winning, and they've got problems and they can't coach or they can't do this. So no matter what, you're in a lose-lose situation. And it just was, again, doing these things. I grew up with a great family and a great parenting and great coaches, but no one has ever really talked. They try to teach you about the character skills and all the things that go into it, but at the end of the day, I was focused more on the winning more than I was the people. And I think this last year, ironically up here back-to-back, when we set this up, it wasn't meant to be that way, but
You'll take it.
Huge, yeah, thank you. Huge fulfillment, though. I'm so excited. I'm sitting up here. I mean, I'm beaming from ear to ear because I love my players. And but I still have 3 kids out there on my team last year from 20 that I didn't connect with. I didn't connect with them as well as I should. And you know what? So that's next year.
So we'll close with 2 questions, and they're very short. I'm going to ask you to fill in the rest of this sentence. Okay, each of you will do this. The truth about achievement is.
Working to be the best that you can be.
Perspective.
It's ephemeral.
I don't know what ephemeral is, but I know that it's...
It's something to do with flowers.
Achievement isn't what you think achievement is.
And fill in this sentence, the key to fulfillment.
Self-worth.
Have the right priorities.
I think it's all about connection.
And I would say the same. Love the people around you.
Thank you, guys.
Grab the chairs.